Alright, hello everyone, what's up warrior students? Today we are going to do a little beginner's guide about tanking. This is going to be fun. Uh, yeah, if I have to tell you anything that comes to my mind when I think about tanking, we would sit here for the next couple of weeks. But I try to cut it down as good as possible. Today we are only going to talk about dungeon tanking in low level, because yeah, like I said, tanking as a general is just too big of a topic to cut it in one video. Like you can always cut down anything to small pieces, but sometimes or a lot of the time you will not get everything across the way you wanted to if you do that, and that's not what I like to do. So we're going to have to do multiple parts, and for the first part of the season of Discovery we are going to talk about low level dungeon tanking and low level raid tanking, because that's a thing now. So first up, yeah, if you want to play a tank in a game that you have never played before, this could be described as stupid, reckless, uninformed, or very confident. However, no judgment here. I do the same a lot of the time, but there's one thing you have to do, and this is, yeah, you have to inform yourself about the things you do. You have to watch dungeon guides ideally before you step into the dungeon, which is something you could do as DPS and healers as well, but especially on a tank you really want to do that. You want to yeah, watch a couple of guides from your class and stuff. You don't want to try out tanking, because the group depends on your performance a lot more than, for example, on a DPS. If one DPS sucks, like who cares in a low level dungeon? But if the tank doesn't know what to do, everyone basically suffers. This sounds really hard, but it's true. And especially in like World of Warcraft Classic, most players are somewhat experienced, or at least they played the game a lot and played the game a lot. That doesn't have to do with experience or knowledge or anything. But yeah, they know what to do in a low level dungeon, and therefore if you as a tank don't know what to do, they start to pull mobs, and then everything falls apart, and you will probably wipe in a dungeon like Wailing Caverns if DPS starts to pull random packs. That's really bad. And yeah, so let's first start with a little graphic here, and this is like what you like the three things you want to keep in mind as a tank, as a warrior tank. This is only about warrior, for like almost only about warrior. So right here we have, okay, this is way too big, white in the top. Oh god, paint is so bad. We have, I will white U. This is for utility. And then down here we have damage, and over here we have durability, so how much damage you can tank. All those three things are important, but there are two stats that work together and one stat that kinda stays alone for the most part for warriors, and this is durability. Yeah, kinda is its own stat, and utility and damage works together, because the more damage you do, the more rage you gain, and rage is utility, because you need rage to cast your spells. For example, you need your rage to debuff your opponents, you need your rage to buff your mates. Okay, you only have this one buff really, but it costs 10 rage, so yeah, there you have it. And then obviously you need rage to hold threat, and threat is like the biggest utility you have as a tank, because if the mobs attack you, they don't attack other people, and this is your main purpose, and therefore yeah, your strongest utility as a tank is to hold threat. And yeah, to hold threat, damage also helps. It's not the most important part for like holding threat, but it helps. So utility and damage work together. If you increase damage, you increase your utility. If you increase durability, you increase your utility, not really. I mean, you obviously have to reach a minimum amount of durability so that the healers can like heal you and don't have to do crazy things to keep you alive, unless this is like part of the plan. Yeah, but instead durability can decrease your utility, because durability usually comes at the cost of damage, and durability usually costs, like when you get hit, the more damage you take, the more rage you gain. So the more tanky you become, the less rage you gain, and therefore the less utility you have. Maybe. I mean, there's to utility, like to threat, there's also kind of a cap, because as soon as you meet the requirements that no one else pulls threat of you, then there's no point in doing more threat. The only stat that can be like pushed into oblivion is damage, because there's no end to damage. The more damage you can deal, the better. And yeah, these are like the 3 things you have to keep in mind when you think about the talents you want to go for and the stats you want to use. So for example, one really good stat for tanks is agility, because it feeds into all those categories. Agility is critical strike chance, that's damage. It's dodge and armor, and this is durability, and because it's damage, and you also get utility. Because remember, the more damage we deal, the more threat we can produce and the more rage we can produce, and therefore the more spells we can use, and yeah, then we increase our utility. Strength, on the other hand, is like pretty much only a stat for damage, because it increases your weapon damage. It does also increase a little bit of your block value, but block value isn't like too much of a concern, and therefore yeah, it doesn't really get you too much durability. It's pretty much only damage, therefore a little bit utility. Yeah, and then we have stamina, of course, pretty much only a durability stat. Like from stamina you only get tankiness. So what I like the most are pieces of like the monkey that have stamina and agility, because it gives me everything I need. The strength usually comes naturally, like on the most of your gear pieces there's a little bit of strength on them, or maybe even a lot of strength. Your set pieces will have a lot of strength. You get a lot of attack power and from raid buffs and stuff. So yeah, this is why I like to focus a little bit more on crit and agility. Also, every time you dodge from your agility stat, you can cast revenge, and revenge deals a lot of threat, so therefore your revenge has a lot of utility. Alright, so now let's take a look at the talents. So there are 4 talents I think that I need to talk about, because for a WoW like newbie, there are like hidden informations that the talents don't tell you. And this is the first talent we want to talk about, is improved cleave. Increase the damage bonus done by your cleave ability by 40%. Some think that this will increase the damage of your cleave ability as a whole, but this is not true. Your cleave deals +5 damage, and this +5 damage gets increased by 40% per point. So the gain is kinda small. It's not it's not like super OP, it's just really small, the gain that is. The next talent I want to talk about is anger management. Like, we only talk about the bait fishy talents that you can reach right now. Anger management says increase the time required for your rage to decay while you're out of combat by 30%, which is technically correct, but what it actually does, it generates 1 rage every 3 seconds. So this also works in fight. So this gives you rage generation in fight, and not only like after the fight, basically. And then the next talent I want to talk about is deflection, because it increases your parry chance. And this by itself doesn't seem too exciting, but there is a lot to parry, especially on a warrior. And this is because every time you parry, the auto attack you are about to cast will be cast it a little bit sooner. Like your auto attack is basically an ability that has a cooldown, and after you cast it, your auto attack, the cooldown will start, and when the cooldown is finished, your next auto attack will come out, right? When you parry an attack, you get a little bit of cooldown reduction on the auto attack that is currently on cooldown. So I will try to demonstrate this on this Savannah whatever. You can see my auto attack swing time over here, and when I get a parry, you will see a little jump in this there you saw parry, and the timer did a little hop. Yeah, I needed to kill like billions of mobs to demonstrate this, but it is what it is. Right, so that's the parry thing I want to talk about. And remember, like when you do more auto attacks, you gain more rage, so you get more utility. So this talent here feeds into all three categories of our little holy trinity here. It gives us parry chance, which is obviously durability. It gives us more damage because we get more auto attacks, and this is in two ways more utility, because more damage, more rage, more damage, more threat. Alright, and the last talent I wanted to talk about was, what was it again? Is there anything important here remaining? Yeah, I think it was improved shield block, because this talent, if you go for this talent, you want to only use 1 point in this. You don't need more than 1 point, because by putting in 1 point, you will increase the amount of blocks you gain with your shield block by 1. And if you put in 3 points, you don't get any more blocks. And this is the only thing you want from this talent, is to get 1 more block. Maybe there's one more thing we can talk about, and this is like crit, improving your chance to crit, because the more damage you deal with your weapon, the more rage you will generate. So crit is not only damage, it's also more rage. Like everything that gives more damage will increase your rage generation. However, crit has one more aspect, and this is for every ability. Like for some abilities that deal damage and cause extra threat, for example here on Shield Slam it says yeah, damage blah 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 also causes high amount of threat. If this is like in the tooltip of your abilities, for example on Revenge, instantly counter attacking an enemy for 18 to 22 damage and a high amount of threat. This means that this ability will deal an extra amount of threat that doesn't have to do with the damage the ability deals. It's a flat amount of threat. So for example, for Revenge, let it be 100, for Revenge rank 2, let it be 100 threat. So the ability will deal like threat for the damage it does. So it deals like 10 damage or so, in most cases, and then plus 100 threat. So it deals about, I don't know, 120 threat or 112 or whatever. Now if this ability crits, now we get to the point finally, it will deal 20 damage, and therefore it will deal a little bit more threat that way. However, the 100 flat threat, oh god, like those tongue twisters, man, like this flat threat, this 100 that gets added from Revenge will be doubled as well, so it will deal all of a sudden like 240 threat. Yeah, so this is why crit really helps for your threat generation, especially as soon as you get Shield Slam. Crit becomes really important. This is why I value agility so high as a tank. Or this is one reason why I do. Yeah, this is basically how you want to build your tank. You can decide to go a little bit more of a defensive route for durability. You can try to gain as much utility as possible with like maybe improving your utility. For example, your 2 debuffs are great utility, Demoralizing Shout and Thunderclap, and there are 2 ways you can, or 3 ways you can improve them. And this is by one with Furious Thunder. Furious Thunder will increase the slow effect of Thunderclap by 6% and increase the threat of Thunderclap. So this is like a super, like the utility value of this rune is absurd. This is why I always have it in dungeon slice, at least, like when I run dungeons. And then you can improve the attack power reduction of your demo shout also, which would also be a little bit more utility. And yeah, then you can balance your stuff. For example, if you want to go for a really defensive route, you can go like this. Here, I know this seems like you will deal like no threat at all, because you have no talents that really grant you damage or rage. I mean, this gives you a little bit of rage and this also, but it's not really noticeable too much. But we have this talent here at the end that will increase the threat by 12%. Like 12% threat is huge. So this route would give you the least amount of damage you can get, but a lot of threat and a lot of durability. So this would be like the safe route for people that like to be very tanky. Yeah, and then we have another route that would be putting points into cruelty and maybe unbridled wrath, or what you could also do is improving your demo shout. But for now I would go with unbridled wrath, to be honest. And then you could improve your battle shout. So this would also increase your utility and your damage, because this buffs your party. Like if you have 4 other melees in your party, this will grant your raid as a whole a lot of damage. And yeah, so this would be damage and utility focused. And then a really balanced approach would be to increase deflection, maybe get improved rend, or like so. This would be for like great tanking. This would be yeah, a very balanced approach. You get a little bit of defense, you get some good offense, but yeah, you lose the extra damage for your teammates that you would bring. And then we have the like approach for dungeon grind. Like I leveled this warrior here just to make, not only just to make this video, I just like to level warriors, but to get like one more time tanking all the dungeons, to give a little bit more of information and to make it more fresh. And for this warrior I went for 5 points into cruelty first, because this increases my leveling speed as well. And then I went 5 points into deflection, so when I'm leveling or when I run dungeons, I parry a lot more and I crit a lot more, which is extremely noticeable when you fight mobs in the open world. Like I know on some mobs this will change nothing, but in the long run you will really feel the difference. And then, because Thunderclap is like our best friend right now in low level dungeons, I decreased the rage cost of Thunderclap by 2. You can also go for 3, and because then you get like 4 rage reduction, which is extremely strong. And then you spec into rend, and yeah, that's basically it. Because if you improve your rend with this build, it gives you a lot of damage and a lot of threat. Because the build I'm playing for grinding dungeons is Blood Frenzy on the chest, Furious Thunder on the boots, and this is also really important, Endless Rage, not Devastate. Devastate is only for single target. For dungeons it's uber useless, and this one is like extremely strong for dungeons. Okay, uber useless was a bit of a stretch. On bosses it's kind of nice, and sometimes you also want to spread some thunders on the mobs, and in this case the rune is pretty nice. Alright, so you can like get rid of 1 point here and put 1 into deep wounds if you feel like you want to get the extra rage from crits. Like every time you crit you get a lot of rage from that. But this is like extremely strong, because every time you use Thunderclap you save 4 rage basically. There's nothing here that comes even close to that amount of rage you save with this talent. Like this talent is absolutely incredible, because you want to basically spam the living shit out of Thunderclap right now when you're tanking dungeons. Alright, let's watch a little bit of gameplay together. So, one more thing, like you can see that I have world buffs in this clip and I also have Wind Fury. Now I don't have Wind Fury every run, but I also have clips without Wind Fury, don't worry, but I have watched both and it isn't really a difference. Like I hold threat just fine. I have enough rage to cast all my abilities most of the time, and yeah, the only thing that is different is here that I obviously deal a lot more damage because of Wind Fury. But yeah, you can see that I have world buffs, and you might now call me out as a cheater, but the thing is, I haven't really tanked the dungeon without world buffs because it's so easy to get. You go to Thunderbluff and then you get your world buff. And as a tank, you kinda want to be the person in the raid that takes the game the most serious out of all the people. You want to use the most consumables. As you can see, this rogue dwarfs me on consumables, so he's like, right now he would be a better tank. You want to use as much consumables as possible, and you want to have your world buffs, you want to know your class, you want to know the dungeon, like you want to be the most serious guy in the group. Because yeah, if you don't use consumables and your DPS does and have world buffs, they will rip off threat, and they will not have fun because yeah, they can't really play their class because you bottleneck them. And therefore, as a tank, you want to use consumables and stuff, and therefore I don't think this is really like a bad representation of a dungeon run, because yeah, every dungeon run I did, almost every dungeon run was with world buffs because I keep an eye out for the buff. Now I don't have a sharpening stone because for me somehow it doesn't work with Wind Fury. Some people say it does, but for me it never did. So and yeah, I go in here, I spread the rend first. I don't care what the DPS is doing there, like if they pull them up off me. Yeah, I don't really care. Now Thunderclap first, and then little War Storm to give the healer some time to heal me because I maybe was a little bit too fast here. And then I basically spam Cleave and Thunderclap and Revenge. Yeah, here I start to spread rend. I should have started to spread rend a little bit sooner, especially like if you want the glyph. I don't think, like if you don't want the glyph, you don't really have to spread rend as much. And you see this, like, I need to pause here. You see the numbers here, right next to my unit, how it's called again, nameplate. You see this number right next to the nameplate. This means, this 86 here means that I'm 86 threat ahead of the person that would come next. So if the person that is next on threat will now generate more than 86 threat, I will lose this raptor. So yeah, and on this mob you can see I have 155 threat because of the Thunderclap and the rend or whatnot, and this is like a really helpful thing. Now what the real pro gamer tank would do, and in this case you could actually run a glyph for Devastate, and you would need to run like Endless Rage, is a pro tank always marks one target with a skull. This means that this target should get focused down by the DPS. So most threat will be generated on skull, and therefore you can just use Thunderclap for every mob that is not marked with a skull. And yeah, for skull you spam Thunder Armor ideally. However, this is like kind of a hassle. I would need to change skull target every time a mob dies. I would need to set a skull every time I pull mobs, and not only me have to go through a big hassle, also the DPS have to stay focused and only attack the skull. And in a low level dungeon this really isn't really needed, and most people just want to relax and run dungeons, especially if they're DPS. If a tank wants to relax, he should probably not play, but lay on the bed or something. But yeah, so I don't want the like the DPS to go through the hassle of focusing skull all the time. I rather use my stats, my build, my runes for a build that I can with a build that I can produce threat on all targets, so that no one has to worry about what they're focusing. But on the other hand, I need to be a little bit more aware. Like you saw me lose a couple of mobs here because one was attacking this one, the other, the rogue is attacking Disruptor, so I basically have two, and one is even attacking Disruptor. So I need to build threat on all mobs, which is more difficult than building threat on only one mob. But if you have the right build, it's doable. So yeah, you see me keeping Thunderclap on cooldown, spreading a little bit of rend, and things like this. So you always, like, you want to keep a little bit of rage in your tank. You don't really want to dry on like 0 rage, because you always want to go into the next pull with a little bit of rage. Here I have 50 rage for the next pull, so that means I can do a thunderclap, I can do a shout, I can spread rend, everything. I could even use a cleave to get ahead on threat, because this is really important. The person that pumps first usually gets threat, and on the most tanks you really want to have the mobs attack you, because if they attack you, you get more rage. And you deal more damage, because yeah, you will get parry hasted and stuff like this. So it's really important to be the first one in the mob group as a tank, and don't let the DPS pull. If DPS pulls, it's most of the time it's a fiesta, because mobs are it's far more difficult to like gather mobs that have already been pulled than to pull yourself, like to pull the mobs yourself. Alright. So for my level, I'm level 20 here, which is quite high. So I noticed that it's actually kind of hard to tank on a warrior if you are low level. Like the earliest you can go into Railing Caverns that I would suggest is level 18. Some people go with level 16 and 17, but this is kind of grief, especially on a melee character. You should be at least level 18. And your first run on level 18 in Wailing Caverns, if you dare to go there on this level, would be kinda rough. And on level 19, it's already a lot better. On level 20, it's like really smooth sailing, and the higher you get, the easier it becomes. This has to do with like the higher your level, the easier for you to hit the mobs, and the harder for the mobs to hit you. So yeah. So here we have a little bit of a chaos pull. Maybe that's nice to see how I handle this. Yeah, I just try to swap around between the mobs and build threat. Thunderclap really helps in this situation. When someone adds mobs, you want to run in the mobs and thunderclap them. And use your demoralizing shout. The demoralizing shout also helps, like thunderclap and demoralizing shout is really great, because even if you lose threat, like if a mob doesn't attack you, but the DPS instead, they will deal a lot less damage, because they are debuffed so heavily with Thunderclap and Demoralizing Shout. So the best thing you can do if you can't hold threat is to debuff the mobs, so that they at least deal less damage, because one of your main roles as a tank, or your main objective as a tank, really is to reduce the damage taken of your group. Ideally, you do that by letting mobs attack you, because you are the hardest target, you will take the least amount of damage. But if this is not achievable in this situation, you want to protect your friends with, for example, debuffs on the mobs. Alright, so we have one more clip from Shadowfang Keep. I think... yeah, this one. Here I have no world buffs. I again have Wind Fury. Like, I was kinda lucky with the groups, honestly. And here, like you see, I'm level 24, I'm farming this dungeon right now, and the mobs that I'm fighting are green. So this really helps. So here, yeah, I jump down. This is something you would normally not do. I don't have any rage, but because of my skill points in Thunderclap, I'm still able to cast a lot of Thunderclaps. The reason why I like to jump down here is because people add mobs, because they run down and they jump down, and then there will be a lot of mobs that add to the fight, like you see here. And this is actually what I want to do here, because I want to do a big pull, and I like if when the mobs come in from different angles, and I can just pick them up. And you can see me here like heavily target swapping, keeping an eye on the threat. Here I see that I have only 80 threat on this guy, so I changed target and did a revenge, I think, or something. And now I'm focusing this mob, now this one. Then I noticed that I will soon lose this. You know, I put a revenge onto this mob, so I have a lead of 160 again. And now I see this mob is about to, like, I will be about to lose this mob, but this mob has only 10% HP, so I don't worry about this. I would rather get a greater threat lead on this mob, which I only have a threat lead of 80, and this mob still has like 50% HP, so I want to increase that lead, so I will not lose it in the future. And I successfully doing so here, and yeah, just like that. So one more thing I wanted to show you guys is a method if you have Wind Fury, how you can get out like 2 cleaves in a row. And we have this happen here. So you see me queuing a cleave here. So my next auto attack will be a cleave. You can see that with my swing timer that is green. And when this cleave will come out, I will queue another cleave and use revenge. Because if revenge procs Wind Fury, the cleave will come out instantly. Here, see, cleave, zack. So 2 cleaves in a row. One more time. And cleave and cleave. One more time. Cleave, cleave, revenge, cleave. Like this. This method I call tornado cleave method and can be used to dump a lot of rage. Like 3 cleaves in a row. With a slower weapon this has a lot of a bigger impact, but with it also works with a fast weapon just fine. Alright, so that's everything for low level dungeon tanking. I showed you the talent builds that you can use. I showed you your best runes that you want to bring. You want to spam the living crap out of Thunderclap in AoE especially. If you have the rage and the time and the threat lead, you want to put on the Demoralizing Shout to decrease the damage you take, because this will allow the healer to heal more efficient, which increases your clear speed overall, because he will need to wreck mana a lot less often. And then when you have the time, you can spread rend on targets that have high enough HP, and when you reach level 20 you will get access to cleave, which really increases your DPS, but it also costs a lot of rage. And as always, I hope you learned something and you had fun watching the video like I did creating it. And yeah, until the next one, stay tuned, take care.